Hey guys, welcome back to Community Starcraft 2. We're going to go for another replay review today, and we're doing it for the SC2ReplayStats.com Season 2 Ladder Challenge. As we can see, it's another TVZ that we're going to learn from today, and basically we're going to be doing this for our sponsor, which is SC2 ReplayStats. As you can see there on the screen, they have a ladder challenge that they do, and part of that ladder challenge is that you're going to be selected to have your game casted if you submit a really cool one. So if you wanted to be on this channel potentially, then check out SC2ReplayStats.com and maybe you'll get your game casted here. So I'm trying to adjust my mic, it's a little loud. But yeah, so let's jump into the game so we can learn some things or two about TVZ. So, of course, this is a replay, and I'll be kind of casting it and giving you guys information at the same time. Our two players, as we saw on the title card, are Seydoux, I think that's how you say that, since that is French, versus JDR. JDR is our Terran. All Seydoux is the blue Zerg, and that's a really cool icon, I have to say. It looks really cool on the insignia, but yeah, so we're going to be basically looking at these players and kind of getting information as far as how they play, and I'll give you guys some useful tips as the game goes on, whether it's how players could have played better or whatever. Now, right now, I'm really curious what this Terran is doing because they have plenty of money, and they are not spending it, so this could be for... It's for a gas, but this is a really... Well, it cancels the gas and resumes it. Okay. I'm not sure what to make of that. I think this was honestly one of those times where he had to go do something really quickly, and he was away from the computer for a second. I mean, nothing else really makes that much sense, because you really definitely want to get that down as soon as possible. Now, this is probably going to be... a couple of Marines in an expansion, I would have to guess. I mean, the gas is so late that a Reaper doesn't make sense. A Factory is going to be really late as well, so there's the first Marine on the way as well. The Zerg, of course, is sending out his first couple of Overlords to try and figure out where the Terran is, but he also did Drone Scout, so the Drone Scout is going to get you a lot of early information as far as what's going on. So the drone walked up here, saw the progress on the barracks. Mostly he just wants to make sure that nothing is proxied, so that he doesn't have to worry about dealing with a bunker rush or anything like that. So everything's making a lot of sense here, especially on the Zerg side. You can see the Zerg's already mining gas before his pool is done. That's because he went gas right before pool, and that's going to give you a pretty much ideal speed timing. This could actually be an all-in from the Zerg, because getting speed this fast in TVZ, or rather ZvT, is not that necessary. Here's the expansion, by the way. So a couple Marines and expand, like we were saying, is what we expected. I would also expect a Factory right after. But the speed should be on the way here pretty soon for the Zerg. You can see his resources should be lining up fairly well with that. But having speed this early in the game is going to do really well at denying a lot of Hellion advancements, but I feel like you could have had that by the time the Hellions would get there anyway. Since basically you can expect every time you play ZvTs that you're going to have to fight Hellions at some point. Since the Terran's build in this matchup is typically open up with a barracks, sometimes a Reaper. Reaper is usually more common than just a couple Marines, so this is a little unusual. But you're going to usually go into Factory, and they'll usually combine up with those Reapers as far as Hellions are concerned. Sometimes they'll mix in Banshees and things like that, so you need to start worrying about getting your creep pushed down to your third base. So I'm just going to approach this from a Zerg standpoint for a little while, just because I have a lot to say right now. So basically, you know you're going to be expecting Hellions and something like that. That's why he's getting this really fast speed. And you'll notice he has stopped mining gas, so he is not planning on all-inning or anything like that. Notice he stopped the gas at 0 gas as well, so he basically counted it out and started pulling his drones back as they returned gas from his geyser. That's not overly necessary, but something cool to look out for. But the biggest priority here, I'd say with this queen down here on the low ground, is start to push your creep out. You definitely want to deny this scout. So he at least sees the queen count, but I don't think that it saw too much. So the first thing you really want to do with this scout here is, or rather with this queen, is start to push out creep. Of course he has a third queen, so he can start doing that as well. So that's another thing you can do. But you need to get your creep connected to the third base over here so you can prevent a lot of the Hellion stuff that the Terran player can be pulling out. And we do see Hellions on the way as well. So I mean, that's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they're going to start making Hellions. And jeez, I'm like really redlining my mic today, and I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, hopefully we can get that resolved. And third commands are on the way for the Terran as well. And I think part of that scout was just to make sure that there was nothing crazy coming down from the Zerg player. So approaching this from a Terran standpoint, your third command center timing can be relatively fast, as we can see here. but you do need to scout at some point and make sure that he doesn't have a bunch of roaches or a roach warren or a second gas mining or anything like that. Then you should be pretty much free to throw down this third command center. This is actually pretty standard play. But in your own games, you might look at the timer and think, oh my god, he's got 3 command centers basically done at 7:30. And if you can mimic that, you'll be in great shape, but you need to understand why players are able to get away with that. So if somebody's just sitting at home and making a lot of units, it's probably better to make these 2 extra barracks instead of this third command, if you see something crazy like that coming down. As far as the Terran as well, the other thing I'm not really agreeing with is he doesn't have a bunker here. He still doesn't know a lot of information, and if the Zerg was just piling on Zerglings that had speed, you could probably just break that. And the reason you make bunkers is so you don't die to stuff like that. But the other intelligent thing the Zerg is doing is he's definitely walling everything off. Getting this safety Roach Warren is a good idea as well in case you're facing a lot of Hellions. But this wall off right here can basically be clogged up with 1 queen. You can have a couple of queens behind it transfuse the 1 queen as well, so that if you have a ton of Hellions that you need to deal with, then you can do that. He is finally taking his 3rd base as well, and the creep is a tad late, I have to say. It could have been there a lot faster, but the fortunate thing is that he's not under a lot of pressure from this Terran player, so yeah, Terran just barely starts to move out, and the secondary timing you guys should realize on both sides is that your second timing is going to be revolving around when your medevacs finish. So you're basically going to get out on the map with your first few Hellions. This 6 number is great. I really can't say anything bad about this 6 Hellion count. But then, so you basically try to be annoying with these first Hellions, and of course people on both sides will find this information useful. Then right after that, the first pair of medevacs and however many Marines you have out is going to determine your next timing. So once he has the gas for this, you can see he's actually a little bit low. Where are all of his workers? He has so many workers in the main, and I don't understand why he is balancing it like this. This has got to be a mistake, because the fact that these command centers are idle this whole time, you need to find ways to get your extra bases mining. I mean, effectively, he's mining minerals on 1 base. And I don't understand why. I know he had workers here before. I guess they're mining gas, but he's missed a lot of workers this game, and it's going to be a big problem as this game goes on. So I have to say, economically, this Zerg is playing this out a little bit better, but this is another thing I really disagree with, is that you don't need Banelings on the field until the first pair of medevacs comes out. You can see the Marines moving out now and the medevacs moving out now. So you should basically be morphing these Banelings when these Marines are moving across the map. Like, when these Marines are here is when you should start morphing the Banelings. The biggest problem if you're Zerg is having an army sitting around that you're not doing anything with. Especially when it's still time to make drones. And I know we talked about this in another video, but you want to make drones and continue to only make drones until your opponent forces you to make something else. And the timing of that is crucial. You want to continue to make drones until you know he's moving across the map. Then when he's moving across the map, you need to take your next burst of larva and turn that into units. The tighter your defenses are as Zerg, the better you're going to be off. But here comes the attack here, and the Banelings actually do get really great connections and push that away no problem. But the fact stands that he still could have made drones and then made the Banelings shortly afterward. And I know you might be thinking, man, this is really nitpicky of him to be focusing on this, but it's a big deal in a lot of games, especially at higher levels, and the Spore Crawler actually doesn't die as well. So, Zerg player's in a good spot right now. The Terran player is still missing a lot of workers here. Quite frankly, it's 12 minutes. If you had a third command that fast, you should be almost filled up on this base, in addition to being expected to be filled up on this base as well. So, I mean, the harassments and stuff are nice, and this is something that I say every once in a while, is that it's nice to do little harassment plays and stuff like that, but only if you can macro behind it. Because the point of harassment is to get you ahead economically. But let's say you move out and you kill 10 drones, but then you miss 10 workers back at home. Then what was the point of that harassment? You know what I mean? So that's something to focus on as well. Only do this kind of harassy stuff if you're able to get your workers going back home, and if you're able to continue to spend your money, because he even still has more money than floating than I would like to see. He could probably add on a couple more barracks to get his money spent here, and he's going to have to eventually. So that's just something you really need to keep your eye out for. But Medevac's still kind of just hanging out here. 2-2 is on the way as well, so the upgrade timings for the Terran are pretty good. This is an advantage you're probably going to have throughout most TVZs, is your upgrades, especially when it gets to 3-3, because Zerg getting Hive takes a long time, and it's really expensive, and they'd rather be spending their money on units. But this is why you get mutas out. They do shut down the drop, so that's a good thing for him so far. and I really need to take a look at this mic. I don't know why it's so loud today, but at least maybe that's just my imagination. But anyway, still pushing his creep out here is something you need to do as well. If he was spreading creep perfectly, I mean, you could probably have it out by, like, right here. Of course, it's a lot to ask of people that are not professional players, but the information that you get from that is just so valuable, and it slows the Terran down so much because they really can't afford to fight too much on creep. This is a big problem, though. The Baneling speed being this late is a huge problem, because if the Terran was able to split properly and the Banelings didn't get good connections, all of a sudden this army runs wild. I guess the only thing he really has going for him to be able to shut this down is the muta count right now, but the army should be so much bigger for the Terran. I gotta be totally honest and say that the army should be a lot bigger for the Terran right now, and it would be a lot bigger if he just hit his SCV timings. I mean, this is the kind of point where if you watch in pro games and you're looking at the clock, and they opened up with a third CC just like this player, they'd be maxed right now. They wouldn't be on 150, they'd be at 200 supply. And that's what makes good players good, is keeping them on top of those things. Here we go, here's the attack, and the Widowmine's actually doing some okay work here. And that's what I mean, the Baneling speed being so late is going to be a big problem right now. Where are the mutas? There they are, they're just kind of hanging out in the back, but the attack continues here. The muta's starting to engage. You can't engage without the rest of your army here, so that's a big problem. Zergler's losing a lot of mutas, and the Banelings desperately need speed. You need to actually wait longer than this. If you don't have speed, you just can't fight this right now, and this Terran's getting way better trades than he should have, only because the Zerg doesn't have Baneling speed. But the attacks continue here. Notice the splitting on the Marines so that the Baneling damage is mitigated as much as possible. And all of a sudden the Zerg is kind of in a bad way, whereas the Terran really shouldn't have been able to get in this position because he just didn't have as big of army as he was supposed to. But Zerglings continue to attack up here, and the Marines doing well to kite back against that. Finally the attack is cleaned up. As far as Terran is concerned, he has a lot of money floating right now, and this is what I was talking about in the macro video, and something that's really important. If you can't spend your money, if you make especially an entirely new production round, we can see all of his barracks are busy doing something, then just make more barracks, make 3 or 4 extra. Whatever you have to do to spend your money is more important than anything else that's going on in the game. But yeah, Zerg's starting to crush attack after attack here, and pushing him back quite far across the map. He wisely disengages here, realizing that he's going to get worse and worse trades the closer he gets to the Terran base, only because the reinforcements will be right there for Terran. But this is a ton of Banelings, and this is where the mines come into play. There's a lot of mines being created, 3 at a time is a big deal, especially against this many Banelings. If he gets good connections on those Banelings, all of a sudden all this gas is completely wasted, and mines are really inexpensive. They're only 25 gas, so he needs to be a little bit careful here. He should scout with a couple of Zerglings to make sure he knows the position on the army, but he's just going to go for it, and kind of wasting a little bit of his Zerglings. The Baneling's in a huge clump right now, but these mines going to get good shots, good splits on the Banelings, and he trades okay. The Roaches aren't doing too much, but like I said, the closer he gets to the Terran base, the harder he's going to have to push through there. So, or rather, the harder time he's going to have to push through there. So, Infestation Pit on the way. This is most definitely for Hive. Some players like to get into Ultras and things like that, but some players can mix in Infestors into this composition, and to be honest, I do like the softer transition just to Infestors first, but getting Hive is important to getting 3-3. This push out shouldn't do too much. There's really not a lot that Zerg can contend with at this point because his army is so fragmented. The mutas, especially being out of position, is a big deal, but picking off reinforcements could be a big problem. Zerglings come up here, going to try and surround this army. A couple of mines are here as well. He needs to be careful. And the mines, fortunately, do detonate on part of the Terran army, so the rest of that being cleaned up as well. So, in the meantime, the mutas are actually doing pretty good work here in the main, and this is something you can do as Zerg. If you ever find a point where you can start to push this away only with Zergling and Banelings, your mutas can be busy out on the map doing something else, which will eventually wear the Terran out. There's a lot of turrets here, but even still, you may be able to attack through this, and you can't lose mutas to turrets. That's a big problem, especially if you're not even trying to attack the turrets. But 20 more Banelings on the way. The Marauders being mixed in here is a big deal, and the mines especially. You need an Overseer with this army so you can clean up these mines. And if the mines get a big detonation here, which they might, okay, no, at least he does split okay against those. Banelings rolling up here once again, and this attack is definitely cleaned up. Even with the reinforcements, he's going to have to run home. And the mines hitting once again, so just to do a little bit of a refresher on Battle Micro here with this composition, you need to burrow your mines somewhere. You preferably want to spread them out a little more than these are being spread out. And then attack up with your bio. As soon as they start to attack into you, run away with your bio so that they have to run over the mines, and then you can engage. Whereas the mines would kill, hopefully, even about half of his army. Those mines getting way too greedy, getting killed right away. The Hive is now on the way for the Zerg. Another command center for the Terran. And if we remember from our macro video, you want a 4th base at around 17 minutes. Right now it's 21 minutes, and he's just barely constructing his 4th base, so that's going to be a problem if you can't get on top of that. But Terran continued to attack up here. There's a lot of stuff in the way. I apologize for that. But Terran's starting to boost into the main base. There's so many medevacs here that if you were able to just get a respectable bioforce, this is 12 medevacs. They're all just basically, every unit has its own personal healer, but at the same time that's so much army supply sunk into something that's just dying to Mutalisks right now. This is a big problem. The rest of the army is now starting to rally up, and if the Marines can pick off a bunch of these Mutas, that'll be a big win, but even still, a lot of aggression coming down out of this Terran, trying to just kind of braid push his way to victory, but it's going to stop working considering he's going to mine out his main base any second if he's not already mined out. Baneling's starting to press up here. He just lifts up in the medvacs and has to go home. He can remine space as well. Both these players doing a pretty good job of this situation right now. Just constant attacks. The Zerg is mitigating it pretty well, and we can see that the Zerg is starting 3-3 right now. The upgrades for the Terran are at 3-2, so he did miss that armor upgrade. That's kind of a big deal as well. But this could be just a never-ending game of Zerg and Terran fighting in the middle of the map, and Zerg just staying on Lair because there's no reason to start mixing in hive units if he's being this aggressive against you. Maybe some infestors here and there, but even still, the 4th base for the Terran's finally being landed. This is a huge problem because, like we said in the macro video, you always want to be mining on 3 bases. Here's one base that's only mining about halfway. Here's one base that's mining pretty well, probably too much, and the main base is mined out. So he's basically on 1.5 bases worth of mining right now. And that's your primary goal, is always make sure you're mining on 3 fully mining bases at all times. So this command center's landing almost 6 minutes late. Or maybe, I guess we could even pad that and say that your 4th command should be started by 17 minutes. So it's not maybe that late, but even still, the 3 fully mining bases goal is what you want to stick with. And now he's mining on about 2.5. But the whole time where he was missing that, look at the army supplies now. And the Terran player is definitely behind, whereas he could have been dramatically ahead if he was on top of that. But Banelings and everything starting to roll in here. Terran does have no medevacs right now, so this army is going to be stimmed to death if he's not careful. Baneling's going to get some pretty good connections. The Marines can now turn around and fight the Mutas, though. So you can see this is why you start to run your army away as far as possible. So all of your mines, all of the rest of your army can get split up and stuff like that, so you can get good engagements. And so worst case scenario, the Banelings, or rather, yeah, I mean, I'd even say worst case scenario, the Banelings only hit about 1 or 2 units each. That's what you want to do, this kind of army. If the Banelings just hit this entire army, then you'd be dead. So you can't afford that. He's starting to kite back here as well. Banelings rolling in as well, and this is starting to be a big problem. So we can see the Zergus looks like he's just going to run him over here. And going back to noticing that that he does just quit the game. So we noticed that the 4th base was so late, and especially, or rather, making SCVs on these extra bases was so late, that the Zerg player eventually, you can see that finally got to the point where he could push him over, only because he was following that rule. He was on 3 fully mining bases the entire time. He even still had patches left in his main. So Zerg player with just better macro, able to take this game. So I hope you guys were able to learn something from that replay, which is always our goal. Check out our sponsor, SC2ReplayStats.com. They have a lot of really cool replay analysis tools. I'm like mixing up words here as I decide to throw this out to our sponsor, but they have a lot of really cool replay tools, and part of this is their replay ladder challenge, where if you play a cool game and if you're a member on the site, you can send it into their Twitter and he'll go through all of them and send me the best one of the week, and I will cast that. So look out for that, and maybe you can be on this channel if you were so inclined. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed the game. Take care, and I think the next video, that if you're watching them all in order, will be TVT openers, or rather TVT strategy. So check it out. I'll stop derping. Take care.